Hey, church family. So good to be with you again on this Wednesday. Hope you're all doing well and staying safe and healthy. And it's certainly good to be with you again to get together for a little midweek Bible study and devotional time. And we're so glad that you have chosen to join us today. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the name Viktor Frankl, but he was an Austrian neurologist and philosopher who was also a Holocaust survivor. And he said these words regarding those who went through those unspeakable tragedies. He said this: the lesson one could learn from Auschwitz and in other concentration camps in the final analysis was those who were oriented toward a meaning to be fulfilled by them in the future, were most likely to survive. The Apostle Paul said it this way in Romans chapter 8, verse 18. I consider that our current or present sufferings are not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed in us. You know, Paul himself survived many difficult challenges in his life. Some included anguish and guilt for persecuting the early church and even supervising a man by the name of Stephen's stoning. Other challenges had to do with painful suffering and abuse that he had to endure, hardships through shipwrecks and financial hard times and physical afflictions, and eventually he would even face his own martyrdom. But no matter the mountains and circumstances in his way, no matter the severity of his suffering, no matter the difficulty of the challenges, Paul faced them with purpose. But how? I mean, how did he survive these ordeals and keep going? Where did he find such resiliency in the face of such stiff opposition? How did he tap into such persevering strength that allowed him to endure to the end? Well, I think the answer is that Paul knew the purpose that is found in Jesus and in him alone, both in this life and in the next. Paul looked forward to a bright future with Jesus beyond this life. He was confident when this life is over here on this earth, that Jesus was awaiting him to come into his presence. And until then, he knew that God had important work for him to do here and now while he was still alive. While he waited for the eventual end of his life, Paul lived passionately to fulfill his calling from God. Paul believed that his life had meaning after his earthly life ended. He also trusted that God had a purpose for his life while he was still alive. I mentioned Viktor Frankl earlier. In his book, Man's Search for Meaning, he suggested that we as human beings can survive almost any how, as he puts it, if we have a why. We can endure almost anything if our lives have meaning and purpose. In Psalm chapter 139, one of my favorite passages, David talks about God being present in every dimension and time in our lives. He specifically talks about when our life began and when God first filled our existence with his purpose and meaning. He writes this: "For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place, when I was woven together in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be." God knew you before your mom even felt you as a flutter in her womb, or knew you as the person that you are inside the bump on her belly. God has known you even before your conception. Your Father in heaven had a plan and a purpose for you, and that plan and purpose wasn't some rigid program that you had to fulfill, but an opportunity for you to embrace. That purpose was designed to give you a meaning and a reason to persevere no matter what life can throw at you. And that same God has known you since you were reborn into his family. That new birth has given you a living hope, the expectation that something, and more importantly, someone, is awaiting you beyond this life. And so no matter what you face in this life, God can reach into the middle of the mess and fashion something good out of it to accomplish his purpose for you and to bring to you your eternal good. And that truth is as valid for you as it was for his own son, Jesus. I mean, Jesus' life and suffering and death were not wasted. They served a tremendous purpose. As for you, when you confessed Jesus and were baptized, your life was joined with Jesus' life. The living and eternal part of you was hidden with him in God, awaiting Jesus' glorious return, when we will share in that same glory with him in heaven one day. I don't know exactly where you are in your walk with God. Some of you may be experiencing great joy and great things in your life. Others of us may be experiencing some times of great suffering and hardship and pain. But above the circumstances, however, we must all embrace the reality that God has a purpose for us greater than our joy or our pain. The meaning of our life is in following Jesus in both his transfiguration, where he was glorious, and in the cross, when he endured abandonment, ridicule, torture, humiliation, and death. No matter our circumstances or your particular circumstances, we know glory awaits us. But between now and glory, God has a purpose for us, no matter where we find ourselves. And even more than that, he doesn't want us to be in those painful, awful, and challenging situations of our broken world alone. God longs for us to know that he will go with us in our struggles. And he wants us to know that our lives still have purpose and meaning, both now and eternally, no matter how difficult our struggles may be. Our Father will accomplish something out of messes for our good, his glory, and even maybe someone else's salvation. How do I know? I know because of what God did with Jesus' painful challenges. Jesus is our older brother, the one who has gone before us as our example and the pioneer of our faith, as Hebrews chapter 2 talks about. Jesus endured what he did so that we could be sure that we would never be abandoned in our journey of faith. And as God's children, our Father will not waste our suffering and tears any more than he wasted Paul's suffering and tears. Our lives are lived for his purpose, and this gives each of our lives enduring meaning. And so hopefully we can join the Apostle Paul in saying with confidence, as he does in Philippians chapter 3, verses 12 through 14, not that I have already obtained all this or have already arrived at my goal, but I press on to take hold of that for which Christ took hold of me. Brothers and sisters, I do not consider myself yet to have taken hold of it, but one thing I do, forgetting what is behind and straining toward what is ahead, I press on toward the goal to win the prize for which God has called me heavenward in Christ Jesus. Hope you have a blessed day. God bless.